This video is going to be about raspberries. And I'm going to try and make it as comprehensive as possible. So those of you who have been buying raspberries from us, it may be useful for you because I'm going to be discussing how we prune raspberries, how we pick raspberries, how we propagate raspberries, how we protect them from its pests, and so many other things that you need to know when you start growing raspberries. Now, the raspberries are one of the easiest berries that you can grow. Most important thing that you need to know about raspberries or the blackberries for that matter is that the canes, these canes of raspberries are not perennial. They only live for 2 years. What is perennial is the crown. The crown of the raspberries is perennial. These canes have a life of only 2 years, after which they have to be taken out. And after you take them out, after you remove them from the crown, just above the ground, that's when you get new canes. These new canes emerge from the crown, which is perennial, and then this way you keep getting these canes production year after year. All that you need to remember is to take out all the 2-year-old canes, because these 2-year-old canes have done the job and they are not going to produce any more raspberries. They are dead. What is alive is the crown. Now you see this raspberry bush in front of me. It has a lot of spent canes. These spent canes are 2-year-old canes. They have done the job. I'm going to remove them right at the base. And it has 1-year-old canes. These are the 1-year-old canes. And these 1-year-old canes are going to give me a harvest this year. And towards the end of the year, they would have completed their 2 years, after which they would be redundant and I would have to remove them as well. So these canes have a 2-year-old cycle after which they need to be removed. Now, the 1-year-old cane, like this cane over here, is called a primocane. A 1-year-old cane is called a primocane, and the 2-year-old cane, which has done its job, is called the floricane. The floricanes need to be removed. Now, this bush in front of me has a lot of these canes. It has both a mix of the floricanes and the primocanes. The primocanes, the 1-year-old canes, and the floricanes, the 2-year-old canes. So I'm going to come in now and I'm going to remove all the 2-year-old canes. Now, it's very easy for me to identify the 2-year-old canes. They look dry, they look dead. Like this one over here, this is certainly a floricane. It's a 2-year-old cane because it's dead, as you can see. And I take it out right at the bottom like this, and this is dry. This is already done its job. It's 2-year-old, and this is now fit for the compost pile. This will be chipped and this will be used in making our homemade compost that we make over here. So this has done its job. The other thing to remember also is to know, before you start pruning your raspberries, is to know what kind of raspberries you have. I have the ever bearing raspberries, which means that they bear me in summers and they bear me raspberries also in the autumn. So I have almost steady harvest between June end till December end. Almost 6 months we are harvesting raspberries from these ever-bearing raspberries that we have on a farm. I have two options with these 1-year-old canes or the primo canes. What are those options? One option is that I take it out, I prune them at the top where they bore me last year. So last year they bore me at the top, and I can take them out where they bore me last year. That is one option. Now, when I make that cut, when I take them out right at the top where they bore me last year, they're going to bear me the raspberries in summer as well as in autumn. But the harvest is going to be spread out. It's not going to be a very good harvest. But if I go for the second option, which is to take it out right at the bottom, were I to take it out right at the bottom, what would happen is that this particular cane would not obviously give me anything in this summer because it would be gone. I would have taken it out. But a new cane which would come out from the crown, the perennial crown, that would give me a very good harvest. The berries would be bigger in the autumn. So it's my choice. If I want bigger berries, if I want a bigger harvest in autumn, then I prune the canes out, the 1-year-old canes, the primo canes, the 1-year-old canes, right at the bottom. But if I also want a harvest in this summer, this June, July, then I prune the 1-year-old canes right at the top where they bore me last autumn. Now, if you look at this cane over here, this is where it bore me the raspberries last autumn. You can see the remnants of the inner white core of the raspberries over here. This is dried up core, and this is where I got the raspberries last year. So because I've taken out just the top, it is going to bear me raspberries this summer as well as give me raspberries in autumn. But like I said, it's going to be a harvest which is going to be spread between the summer and the autumn, and the berries are not going to be that big. If I were to take them out right at the bottom, and then I would get a very good harvest only in the autumn. So it's your choice. It depends what you want from your raspberries. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I want raspberries throughout the year. I want a steady supply throughout the year because I have a restaurant in Shimla, Cafe Koblu, and I have a B&B over here where we require a lot of raspberries for our smoothies, for our shakes, cakes, and so many other things. So I want the raspberries also in summer, and I want raspberries also in the autumn. So I'm going to be pruning the raspberries according to my need. So it depends what you need from your raspberries, and you can prune them accordingly. So what I'm going to do this year is, because I have a lot of raspberries, I'm going to experiment. I'm going to take out some of the raspberries right at the ground. The 1-year-old canes and the 2-year-old canes, all of them are going to be taken out right at the ground. They're going to be taken out with these loppers. I'm going to lop them off right at the base. And then what is going to happen is I'm going to get a very good harvest in the autumn month. I'm going to get a good harvest towards the winters. But obviously, I will have to forfeit my harvest in the summers. But in most raspberries, I'm going to take out their 1-year-old or the primocanes from the top. That's where they bore me last year. And by doing that, I would have ensured some harvest also this summer. Now, as you can see, these are the primo canes. These are the new canes which are being pushed up by this crown which is perennial. This crown is what lives on. These canes need to be removed. So don't be scared if your cane dries out after 2 years, because after 2 years, you have to remove all these dead canes so that these new shoots emerge, because these new shoots are where you're going to get any raspberries. So this is the way how the raspberry renews itself. You remove the old canes, and these new canes, they push up and they become the canes where you get the raspberries. So this one over here is an old cane. I remove it at the base. This is the floricane, the 2-year-old cane. It's gone. And then I take out this one over here. Looks like a floricane, 2-year-old cane. I remove it right at the base, goes into the compost pile. I remove this as well. Again, dried out completely. 2-year-old cane. This is a 1-year-old cane. I have pruned it right at the top because I also want the raspberries from it this summer. This is a dried cane, and I need to take it out right at the bottom, and it's gone. Now you might want to wear gloves when you are pruning your raspberries, because the raspberries have got very fine thorns in them, and you might bruise yourself. So I'm going to wear these gloves of mine when I prune the raspberries. There you go. One over here. And then do I have another glove? Here it is. So I'm all sorted. I've worn these gloves, but mind you, these gloves are only to protect myself from these very tiny thorns, which are just irritants. In the wild, they're wilder cousins of this domestic raspberry is the Himalayan yellow raspberries that we have in this part of the world. In this Himalayan region where I am at, those raspberries that grow in the wild, they got very thick, very big, very prickly thorns, and it's very difficult to pick the raspberries from those bushes. That's why perhaps these domestic thornless versions of raspberries were perhaps developed. These are thornless raspberries. Their thorns, if any, are very small and they can just irritate your skin a little. So that's why I'm wearing these protective gloves. But otherwise, these are not like the raspberries that you have growing in the wild. They are not like the yellow Himalayan raspberries that we have in this part of the world. So I'll renew my pruning of this particular bush. This one again, is a 2-year old, and I take it out. And then we have one over here, which is a 2-year old. I take it out at the bottom. Any 2-year old, they go right at the bottom. This one is a 2-year old. Take it out right at the bottom. There you go. This one at the bottom. This one's certainly a 2-year old. And it goes right at the bottom. I might want to use a lopper because it's pretty thick. There you go. All of these bore us the raspberries for 2 years. They've done the job, and now we've got no use of them. There you go. This is a 1-year old. This is a primocane, and I'm going to prune it at the top. And this primocane, these primocanes that I've left over here, which I have pruned at the top, are going to be completing the 2 years in autumn of this year, and that's when they become floricanes, and that's when they will have completed the 2-year-old cycle, and they would be removed at the bottom, just like the floricanes that I'm removing right now in this bed. These are the floricanes, 2-year-old. They go. And this one over here, very thick. I might want to use a lopper for it. Easier to take out any dried bits, the dried canes, with the lopper than with the secateurs. The secateurs are good for fleshy stems, but these loppers are very effective if you want to take out something right at the base, especially when it's dried. And all floricanes are dried. And that's the reason we remove them. They are dried, they are dead, they're useless, and we need to just cultivate our 1-year-old primocanes. I'm going to take out the top end, which bore me the raspberries last year, so that it can start sprouting again and start bearing raspberries again for this summer and this autumn. So pruning is perhaps the most important aspect of taking care of the raspberries. If you get the pruning right, you get raspberries year after year, you get these canes year after year. And we are now done with the pruning of this particular raspberry. We tipped it right at the top where it bore me last year so that I get a summer harvest as well as the winter harvest. I only took out the 2-year-old canes or the floricanes right at the base, right where the crown is. And these are all the primocanes, and these canes are going to bear me the raspberries this summer as well as in autumn. After which they become floricanes because they would have completed their 2-year-old cycle, after which I'm going to remove them right at the base and then cultivate all these new canes which are just shooting up. And these canes are the canes which are going to be the new primocanes which are going to bear me the raspberries. Now, as for this raspberry in front of me, I have no use of the secateurs because I am going to take them out right at the base, for which I need my loppers. These raspberry canes, primocane or floricane, both of them are going to be taken out right at the base, irrespective of whether they are 1-year old or 2-year old. This goes, everything goes out right at the base. Reasons are twofold. One I mentioned earlier is that because I want a good harvest in the autumn, and the other reason is to eliminate pest pressure. Unlike Europe, where you don't have the monsoons, over here in this part of the world, we have the monsoons, we have the rains, and the rains bring a lot of diseases. They bring a lot of pests, especially the SWD fly, which lays eggs inside the ripening raspberries in the summers, in June and July. So by removing these canes and getting the harvest only in the autumn, I would eliminate that risk, because In the autumn, in this part of the world, our season is dry. We don't get the rain and we will not get the pests. And the raspberry is going to be free of all these pests that plague the raspberries in summer, in the rainy season. So all of them go. This was primocane, but this goes as well because we want a harvest from it only in the autumn. This was a primocane as well. This, as you can see, had already started pushing out these leaves, but we are removing it because we are opting to get raspberries from this particular bush only in the autumn. In the autumn, when the raspberries are going to be slightly bigger, and in the autumn, when the raspberries are also going to be free from any kind of pest pressure that is that is present in these raspberries in the summers during the rainy season, during June and July. All of them go. This one goes as well. Everything right at the bottom, right where the soil line begins, all these raspberry canes are going to be removed. So much easier to prune the raspberries. If you're going to be pruning for autumn, then it's the simplest, it's the easiest. You just have to take the lopper and prune all the canes right to the ground. There you go. This was perhaps the last of the canes, and we don't have any cane over here on the ground. All these canes have been removed. So there you go, job done. All the canes, primocane, floricane, 1 year old, 2 year old, all have been taken out right at the base, right at the crown. Now this particular crown is now going to prep itself to bear canes, which are going to bear us raspberries in coming autumn.
So this is all about the pruning of raspberries. But how do raspberries propagate themselves? Raspberries, the crown, it sends out these runners, and these runners they send up shoots which you can dig up and separate, and when you separate them they become individual raspberry plants.
So this is the raspberry, and it has got, as you can see, so many of these raspberries, and these raspberries are there because it propagates through runners. So what we're going to do is we're going to individually take out all these raspberries because they're all individual raspberries. This is a separate raspberries, this is a separate raspberry, and this one over here which I have already detached was another raspberry. So they're going to be going into these pots before we put them into our garden, or we can dispatch it to somebody who wants them.
So after we dig up these baby raspberry plants, we put them in 4-inch pots so that their roots can establish themselves before we take them out and plant them in our fields. And after a couple of months, after we know that the roots have established themselves, they become healthy, is when we take the plants out and plant them in the fields. And the plant to plant distance of raspberries should be ideally about 3 feet. And once planted, it's a good idea to mulch the raspberries. We are mulching them here with hay. Then, of course, it's a very thrilling, exciting moment when these plants start bearing the berries and when you start harvesting the raspberries. But remember that the raspberries cannot be picked the same way that you pick the blackberries or the blueberries. You have to pick the raspberries very differently. With raspberries, you pick only the fleshy berry and leave the white core behind. You do not pick the berries along with the core the way you would do with the blackberry or the blueberry. You need to leave the core behind because the core is not what you eat. If you take it out with the core, it's going to be inedible and it's going to be something that's going to injure the raspberry. So just the berry and you leave this white core behind.